It's February the 15th, 2012. I'm Mike Benedetti. This is 508, a show about Worcester. Today on the show, special guest, Sue Gately. Hi, Sue. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Jim Kersten back on the show.
All right, Michael.
A-okay. And Brendan Melican.
How are you?
Very good. And I think that we have now had as much hard news on this episode of the show as GoLocalWorcester has on their first day. We'll be talking about GoLocalWorcester later in the show. But mostly we're going to talk about the library board. Because you two, Sue and Jim, you guys are on the library board.
That's right.
And you're the vice president of the library board.
I am.
All right. And I feel like I have a lot of questions about the library board. I guess the first question is I guess the first questions are more like non-policy questions. So like, how did you get involved in the library board?
Well, I've been a library user for a long, long time. You know,
Sure.
it's been a place that I've found to work very well for a lot of very funny things. A long, long time ago, I used to have a business.
Okay.
And we did applique, so it was value added onto other fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to get a lot of custom work and a lot of requests for very unusual things or things I didn't know about. For
Okay.
instance, somebody wanted me to do an applique of an Appaloosa horse, and I didn't know what an Appaloosa horse looked like, so I would call the library. And I would say, can you describe to me an Appaloosa horse?
Sure.
And they would. And then when I was doing some work on a degree, I wanted to find out some more about the history of higher education in Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
And the collection there is just beyond belief. So I sort of learned another thing.
Yeah.
And just, you know, taking my kids there for programs when they were younger and going to the branch library when there used to be one in Tatnick Square. And another job I had, I used libraries not just here in the city but throughout the region to let people know about a program I was running. So they just sort of seem to be a really central kind of a place that reaches a variety of people and, you know, just has an awful lot to offer. So somebody said to me, I think you'd be a good library board member. Would you be interested in applying? And I said, I guess I would.
Mm-hmm.
I had had an experience on a board at one other time, and it was a really good experience, and I love doing things for Worcester, so I thought that would be a good fit for me. So
How long have you been doing the library board for?
this is my fourth term, so I'm just starting the fourth term, and these are 6-year terms.
Oh, so you've been on the library board for...
3 years, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait a second. 3 years.
Yeah, so I'm just starting the fourth.
The fourth year.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, of your 6 years.
that's right.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Jim, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good. So were you on the library board the last time we talked to you?
No, I wasn't.
How did you get onto the library board? How did that happen to you?
Well, actually, she called me. Susan called me and said there was an opening, and to me, it was something that I think like a lot of people, I had these memories of going there as a child, and the big giraffe in the children's room, kind of was a central part of my early childhood, and going into using the library as you grow older and do different type of projects. And I think now to me it was also a very interesting time because there's a new head librarian there who's very proactive, and I think now is a time that we can really do a lot and enhance the library and grow it to do more than what it's doing now, which is it's doing a tremendous amount.
Well, this is what I want to ask you guys about then, is this library policy, because I love the library. I definitely love the library. I love books. I love librarians, and any librarian immediately is super hot in my opinion. Mm-hmm. There's nothing about the library that I do not like. I like being yelled at for being loud. Mm-hmm. I like homeless people. I like kids being rowdy. I like every aspect of the library so much. I feel like I have some idea of what I think are library issues these days. Mm-hmm. But what are the library issues? What are the big issues that you guys on the library board are talking about nowadays?
Well, it's always funding, of course,
Right.
like it is for everybody. But even that aside, I think the biggest issue that we spend a lot of time talking about is how can we be better? How can we get out further and further into the community? what kind of services are we missing? We talk a lot about losing the branches and wishing we could get them back in some way.
Yeah.
So I would say that most of our work is thinking about how to make things better.
How to make things better? How to get more people into the library?
Well, yeah, it's always good to have more people because people find it so useful once they start.
Yeah.
And we know that it would be a good resource, but more so trying to be open much more than we are because the budget has really cut us back pretty severely over the last few years, quite a few years. So, we get some funding from some wonderful philanthropic people in the city, and we have these, open Sunday deals.
That's where you're able to be open Sunday because you have different people who are willing to fund that.
That's right, and that's what we do with that money is we just stay open on Sundays. I think what people don't realize about libraries is that there are all these rules about how you can be open, and you have to have a very particular staffing situation in order to even be open.
You mean like the number of people who need to be on hand to...
And it's not just the number, it's the qualifications that those people have.
Okay.
So you can't just have people who would like to work on Sundays.
Right.
You have to have somebody who has this capability and that capability and credential.
Right.
In order to be able to be open. So it becomes really complex when you look at, okay, you have to be open so many hours to keep your accreditation. And then in order to do that, you have to do all these algorithms to figure out who can be here at what time in order to have the right thing happen. So we try to figure out which branch needs to be open. We have 2 branches, the main library and 2 branches. One is at Great Brook Valley, and that's very small, and it really only services kids for the most part, although lots of adults use it too, but it's very small. And it's really there, for computer access and maybe some homework help, that sort of thing. Very limited hours, but the branch in Greendale is incredibly busy, and it's still very tiny.
That is a small building.
It's very tiny, very cute. Wonderful people that work there, but you have to do the same thing. So if we're not open downtown on a Tuesday night, we'll make sure that the Greendale branch is open on Tuesday night, and just trying to juggle to make sure that people get as much service as we possibly can get to them.
Yeah.
And also too with the the library isn't what it always was. It's not just a kind of a house of books anymore, or a reference center. I mean, it's a reference center, but it's not the traditional reference center. And that's part of our challenge too. Is how do we keep growing the library and enhancing on the programs? I mean, we have if you got an e-reader for Christmas. Whether it be like an iPad or a Kindle
Fire or an iPhone or an Android phone.
You can, with your library card from your house, you can log on, and there's an app. It's called Overdrive. I think it's right, and you can right from your house, you can go on and there's e-books for you to rent for free. For 7 or 14 days. It's services like that and innovations like that are really important. That the library is providing now, and that we need to also get this message out and see what, and get out there and talk to people and see what other services would be useful. What would you like to see in your library? And I think that's something that the board is taking very serious now, is getting more involved in the community and also, in growing and, wanting to grow the library in many different ways. People don't know about the talking book program that we have. And that's for people that, are visually impaired. That this is a major thing that we run through Worcester.
Yeah. So these are 2 questions that I think I wanted to drill down with you on more. The question of making the library a community space, and then the question of dealing with technology moving forward. Brandon, do you have any?
I do. I'll let you handle the technology. My question was really going to be, and I don't want this to be an uncomfortable question, but do you folks on the board really feel as though the city or the administration takes the institution seriously today? And I know it's a weird question, but it seems as though that whenever we do come across some free cash or what have you in the city, we can almost guarantee where it's going to go. It'll be like public safety, might be some road repairs or what have you. But we've got this institution that, if not for the last pilot chip that we got from the Mass College of Pharmacy, we might still be talking about fewer days being open and what have you. Where I like to think that there are a handful of institutions out there that are truly public institutions that, advancements in technology aside, they need to be there, right? I mean, you don't have a library, you're not a city, obviously. And I'd go so far as to say that I'm one of those people that thinks a library should be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just as a matter of practice. And I oftentimes wonder whether or not it's become something that is almost viewed as just a cash cow. This little place that we lose money from the perspective of the administration, which I hope I'm wrong in. But is it just prioritized differently these days, or is?
I think that's part of the job that we have on the board, and it's the job of us to be, the voice and almost like the lobbyists of the library. That's part of why we're coming out and doing this show, is so people can understand what we do and the importance of what we do, and the vast web that we cast.
What do you do? What do people need to know about that they maybe don't know about?
Well, I mean, if you're looking for a job, we run programs to help people formulate their resume. Mm-hmm. Whether it be that or the e-reader stuff, or reading a book to your children. If you want to come in, there's some local authors that come in from time to time, or not even local. I mean, there's some big, some decent name authors that come in, and it's all these services. Or if you want to, rent a room for free, we provide 2 rooms at the library for community gathering.
Yeah.
These are all very important things, and it's our role to let people know what we offer and the importance of what we offer, and collectively we can impress upon whether it be anyone, the administration or whoever, any funding source, we can help lobby a philanthropic organization. Any way we can to enhance the library is really our role as board members directly. But it's our role as a community, kind of indirectly, to all kind of get behind this and really make sure that our library is and continues to be a first-class, first-rate institution.
But I would say, to answer your question, Brendan, I do think that the city is behind the library. I think they see it as an asset to the city in a lot of ways. Just its sheer location and trying to grow the downtown and enhance the downtown, I think they're very aware of the situational role that it plays. But I think they're also very impressed, and I think Mark Contois, our new-ish head librarian, has done a really good job with that, is helping them to see what opportunities there are for that kind of synergy to really strengthen the city and the personality of the city and all the good feelings that community people have about the city. I think they're really recognizing the value of that, and they've actually provided a considerable amount of resources. But I agree with Jim that the board's role is really to kind of keep an eye on that, because this board is set up quite differently than most boards in the city.
Okay.
There's an autonomous aspect to it that has to do with the bequest from Mr. Green, who gave the money for the library. And because of that, there are lots of rules and regulations as to how we operate. And so our budget is a little bit different. We are a city department, and it's not like we're a service that the city provides. We're sort of on the outside of that, and that helps us. But it also provides people who are on the board with, I think, probably a bigger responsibility than you might realize.
Let me ask you about that. So, besides your role as board members and sort of doing outreach from the library to the rest of the city, what kind of power and responsibility do the library board members have?
Well, they manage the entire budget. There is a financial committee and a treasurer, and they are the ones who sanction the expenses. These don't go to the city or the city council for their vote. It's all done right there by the board.
So if the library says, "Oh, we have to start closing on Wednesdays because we don't have enough money," that's a decision that ultimately the library board makes?
Yes, I'd say ultimately yes, but there is a mix of how the money gets to us.
Okay.
So the city does provide a budget.
Right.
And then we determine how that budget is used.
Right.
Then there are other complex things where the city does get involved in the administration aspect, and that's with, there are union and non-union members there, so there are different capacities that people fill. And when they have to cut a budget or they have to cut personnel, there's a formula that would be used in any circumstance that
Right.
has to do with union or non-union people. So the city would be involved in that because they are city employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's exactly what I was getting at in a way, was that, as an institution, I'll be the first to admit there was probably a period of 10 years I didn't step foot in the building, right? I was in my 20s, it wasn't there, it wasn't something I needed as a service. Now that I'm a parent, I'm back in there on a regular basis. And it's, as an institution, one of those things that you just hope is always going to be there, especially when you forget about it and then remember that it's there and that you should be taking advantage of it, much like public safety or public works or what have you. But sometimes it's hard to get a handle on. You folks are steering the ship on the inside, the outside, where the sources of funding come from. It's nice to hear that you folks actually do think that they're taken seriously, because it's an institution that obviously probably could be cut loose to a certain extent without. You'd have some outcry from users, but it's also, we've got lots of outcry when we start making cuts in the city, and it is not always necessarily dealt with appropriately.
Yeah, and I think it's also important too. I mean, there's a lot of talk in the city about how do we get people downtown? How do we, get them walking around downtown? And if you look at the sheer number of people that come in and out of that library, it's amazing. And so I think in that aspect alone, the institution itself has to be taken serious.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have so many questions for you guys with the library, but first I have to ask Brendan a question. How many pull-ups can you do?
No idea.
It's
More
fine.
than you.
Probably so. Do you want to do these first, or do you want me to do them?
No, go ahead, because you didn't.
Here, hold the camera. Okay. All right. Pull-up challenge.
Pull-up
This is the first. By the way, this is the first pull-up challenge I've ever seen between a gentleman in a bow tie and a gentleman in a tie. This
I'm not taking them off either.
Just because you're doing, just because you're doing this way or this way.
Whatever works best for you. I prefer cupped, but yeah.
This way.
Wow, he has names for them.
I think it might be supinated. Or it might be pronated. I don't know. All right. Let me know.
Somebody from the library board should be able to help us out.
Right, you should call them right up.
Library board members, let me know if I'm somehow cheating on form here. I don't do a lot of pull-ups.
You have me nervous that you're on the inside there, though. We could just close this door and you could knock, and then tell us that you just did 20.
Here we go.
Ooh,
1.
So you're doing full extensions, huh?
very impressive.
Almost 2.
2. Almost 2.
No, I'll give you 2.
All right.
That's it.
1 and 1.9.
1 and 1.9.
1.9. Okay.
You mind if I stay out here?
You can do it that
I
way
want
if
to see
you
your
want.
face struggling. Turn around.
You want to.
Oh,
1.
He's gotcha.
2, 3, 4,
He's just
5,
it's gloating now.
6, 7,
Wow.
8, 9, 10.
So we'll just leave it there.
All right.
It's been a long day.
Not bad. 9 or 10. 9 or 10.
People want to count for us.
Let's ask. I want to talk about. I kind of want to talk about. Should we talk about GoLocalWorcester first, or should we go back to the library?
I would like to hear, you were about to go down the path of technology. I think it's important. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Is,
Talking about what are you saying?
technology at the library.
We should talk about the library.
You know what? Let's talk about GoLocalWorcester. They had their first, they launched today. There was
Yes.
nothing worth reading there.
It's like the pulse. I brought this as a thing because people don't know what the pulse is. This is the pulse. Everybody knows the pulse. I don't criticize the pulse on this show because honestly, I feel like the pulse is not aimed at me. I'm not in their demographic.
Yeah.
GoLocalWorcester, I feel like I'm supposed to be in the demographic of a news website about Worcester.
Uh-huh.
And yet, I don't know what this
I think
is.
they are filling a niche, which is going to be almost a replacement for sort of network news, the sort of media market we don't have here, which is that sort of slash and burn style reporting that even if you take a positive, somehow you put a negative spin on it because you've got a short attention span for your viewership. That seems to be what they're doing, but day one wasn't impressed.
That's our commentary.
I mean, they had this huge story today about Tim Murray, right? And it was somehow that the headline of the story seemed to be accusing him of doing wrong for not bringing casinos to Worcester.
Let me see.
But
Hold on.
then,
Here
the story was essentially
Did Murray desert Worcester in casino bill? So this is the thing about how Tim Murray, supporter of casinos in Massachusetts, one of the top public officials to get donations from the casino people in Massachusetts. There's this whole casino zoning thing, which apparently something flipped so that now Worcester goes from being likely to get a casino to unlikely to get a casino by this zoning flip. And the question is, does there some sort of problem here? The implication here, the more I read this, I guess the implication is like, because you're a supporter of casinos, somehow you're responsible for everything in the bill. Even though Vincent Pedoni, representative from Worcester, actually took credit for the zoning change because he doesn't want casinos in Worcester. Well, nonetheless, maybe secretly Tim Murray did this.
The headline was sort of focused on something absurd, which is that somehow Tim should both be faulted for not bringing casinos to Worcester, but then also being a statewide politician, that Worcester should be his only focus.
He owes us something, somehow.
Which is a bizarre angle to put on. It seems more like they saw lobbying money and figured that there would be a sure thing for Worcester. Found out that wasn't the case, but they were too deep in the research and decided to write a story anyway, so framed it around something inane.
Unlike some people on this show, I'm no fan of Tim Murray, but I gotta say, I don't even know what this story is. Anyway, this is the only thing. This is the only thing in there. I should talk though about other stuff around the city of Worcester that you could get for free. That's pretty cool. Vocero, Hispano Vocero, or Vocero Hispano, I guess. The Spanish language paper actually has had a couple of cover stories that I noticed the last few weeks. Here's one about Kevin Kassen, and here's one about the Occupy Worcester NDAA protest. Well, there you go. It's like a little bit more of a radical twist for them. Actually, I found paper copies of The Onion at Acoustic Java, nice. Which is kind of cool. So you can get them? What? I don't know. I should ask them where they got them. Anyway, so if you want a paper copy of The Onion, you can go there. Also, have you read Fugazi Owl Babies?
I have not read Fugazi.
This is a little mashup comic book that Joe DeGeorge has put out. Fugazi Owl Babies. What's all the fuss? Their mother owl asked. By the way, library, show, reading, children's book. What's all the fuss? Their mother owl asked. I wasn't at a show. You knew Fugazi has been on hiatus since 2002. The baby owls thought. All owls think a lot. I knew it, said Sarah.
Wait,
and I knew it, said Percy. I love my mommy, said
just
Bill.
Read the end of the story.
No, there's one more page. Oh. There's a back page.
It's kind of like it's a spoiler.
Spoiler alert. Fugazi has been on hiatus since 2002. I want to ask you guys about, actually more than technology, because I could just go on and on about technology. I want to ask you about expanding the library to be more of a community space, because I know that this is what people talk about. And like technology is technology, like whatever. Maybe the book goes away in 10 years. That doesn't affect making the library a community space. I can think of two constituencies at the library using it as a community space, where at least I've heard from other library board members some rumblings of what is the policy here, what's the story here. One is the young people. They have their space downstairs. Like young people, they're loud. The librarians are always yelling at them. Always warms my heart, both sides of that equation. The other thing is homeless people being in the library, sleeping in the library, causing trouble in the library sometimes, passing out in the library sometimes, et cetera, et cetera. I just throw this out there to open up that question to you guys about expanding the library's use as a community space. Because when I was a kid, the library was not a community space. Like when I was a kid, I was not allowed to go to the second floor of my library. I was actually not allowed to go outside of the children's section of my library when I was a little kid. I remember whenever I was like 8 or whatever, and finally I could get the different library card that I could be like, I get to look at books with not pictures in them. Whereas this is totally a different model.
I don't think I've gotten that one yet.
Than the Worcester Library. You just have to hang out by the kids' books. Anyway, so what can you say to me about this stuff?
Well, the first thing I would ask is, what do you mean by community space?
I guess I mean this thing of saying, well, the library is a place where you could check out books, but the library is also a place where a lot of people could go to do other things. They could have meetings at the library. They could use the library for teaching, for learning, for all sorts of things that would not involve just like, it's a warehouse for books.
And I think that's part of what we're doing by coming out and doing shows like this. Right. Is really letting people know that this is a community space.
Right.
We do have rooms that if you have a public meeting, you can come there.
Right.
You, as long as you call ahead and reserve the room, it's free of charge.
Right.
We saw a video last night. There's 3 students from WPI that are putting together that are working with library staff. Yeah. Where during the school vacation week, kids can come in and learn how to program video games.
Yeah.
It's things like that really are different features to our library that will bring more people in and provide a different experience.
Well, maybe this is the question I'm asking then is this clash between the old model of the library, which is this is a place to store books, this is a place to read books, this is a place where you do not talk. This is a place where you just need to be very calm and very quiet versus saying this is a place where you come to do all sorts of other things. And like the idea of, well, once I leave the meeting space, suddenly I'm going to stop talking to the people with me, or suddenly, that's a bit of a weird thing.
I think it really depends where you are in the library. There are, reference areas and research areas. But if you go to the media center on the first floor, you'll see a few people, laughing at, Honey Badger on YouTube.
Yes.
I think that's a good thing. It just, everything's, again, it's being appropriate and respectful. I mean, you can talk to someone, have a conversation, and have a few laughs in certain areas, but it's inappropriate to do that in other areas.
We do have people who will say it's too loud here.
Yes.
Or and what we do is we mark quiet places.
Okay.
And there are signs there that will say this is a quiet area.
Yes.
But the whole downstairs is pretty open. And it is where the kids, the children's room is a pretty big area. And
I'm thinking of the teen room.
The teen room is a big area, and that's a busy place with teens. And as a matter of fact, Worcester has done a phenomenal job attracting teens to the library, more so than most libraries, so that they use it not only for their own things, but they have a very active anime group. And they have a very active literary group where they do writing and a real mix of kids.
These are good problems to have. I should say that we could be sitting here talking about there's never anybody at the library, but it's no, there's so many people at the library and they're having such a good time.
Yeah. And it is great, and we're expanding kind of our involvement, our community involvement every day, and bringing more people in, and I think people go there and. Whether you want to read a book by yourself and enjoy it that way, that area is provided. If you want to be part of a social gathering, that's provided as well. And or you can do both. Or if like I said, you can enjoy it at your house. These are things that we're doing. And we're working with different city agencies and really expanding the library that way as well. With the Worcester Telegram selling their downtown office.
Right.
I mean, they came up and they said, "Hey, can you store a bunch of our old stuff?" So,
really?
Yeah, they have literally, I think it was 5 or 6 huge bookcases in the basement, all full of old.
They've actually got Lee Campbell hanging on the wall right now.
We returned that.
But along those lines, I'm sorry.
No, you have 2 minutes.
Do you folks have any concerns as a board then that Mike was talking about all the extras on top of an institution of research or learning? Are there ever any concerns, or you folks ever discussed maybe we're losing sight of the initial mission? Are there, when someone proposes maybe an expansion of community spaces or using Spurgeon spaces maybe for public art, or just making sure people can come and go. Are there ever any internal concerns that maybe something is starting to steal focus from the initial mission of why we're here, which is
No, I don't think anybody has ever brought that up. I think that the talk has been more of servicing more interests. We were just looking recently at instituting a small business center or a business center where there would be some expertise developed,
Sure.
There would be a collection developed, there would be very particular access to online maps or whatever would be useful to businesses so that they could use it, because we have these unique, really wonderful collections of things that groups come in and use. There's a grant resource center there, so there are a lot of people who come to learn how to write grants, and there are workshops there that will help people to write grants. There's a genealogy program there that's very highly used. Lots of people come and spend time studying genealogy.
We have to wrap up the show. I'm
Sure.
sorry, we're running down to our last 20
Well,
seconds.
see, there's so much to talk about.
Sue, thanks for being on the show. Jim, thanks for being on
Thank
the
you
show.
very much.
Brendan Milliken, pull-up champion. I'm Mike Benedetti. Thanks for watching 508. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.